Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent Wheat. Thanks for joining us here on one of the world's biggest gun talk programs as we chat with the interesting folks who make up the world of shooting. Well, our guest today is my cohort, my co-worker, and unindicted co-conspirator, Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner Magazine. And we were talking about silencers lately, and Tom and I got to talking about it, and I said, let's just get online and hit record, and we can talk about the process of buying a silencer, how easy it is, the reasons you might want to do it, and just how you go about being one of the cool kids at the range with your own silencer. So, going to talk to Tom after this quick word from our great sponsor, Armscor and Rock Island Armory.
The STK series blends the advantages of a striker-fired pistol with everything you love about your 1911. The STK100 Ultra has an updated frame with more aggressive side grip panels and checkered front and back straps. But we didn't stop there. You'll see that the optic footprint is now larger, which means even more options for your favorite red dot. The new STK from Rock Island Armory. Experience the power and precision of the Rock today. For more info, visit armscor.com.
Well, hey there, Tom.
Hey.
How's things going today down in the South? I know you've got the work prevention team there, but they're down for a nap, right?
They are, which means, you know what time it is?
Time to do a podcast?
Swamp rat gotcha time.
There you go. There you go.
No, I shouldn't say swamp rats. They're scenic wetlands rats. That's what the realtor told us was behind our house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, scenic wetlands.
Yes.
Some people call it a swamp.
Yeah. A godforsaken hellhole, typical stuff. But
no, it's just nature. But
yeah, I do like a good swamp. Yeah. But well, we're gonna. You held up for the folks that are listening to the podcast. You held up a silencer. Those things that in the movies, they just go psst, and
yeah, this one's like that.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about silencers and the fact that you can own one, believe it or not, and it's actually not that complicated. And we've been through the process, and we're going to walk you through that. So, well, before we get there, though, let's talk about silencers, because this week I had a buddy, well, do you really need one of them things? Well, you don't.
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say you don't need one, but yeah, you need one.
I'd go with need.
Yeah. Talk about some of the positives of having snuffers, aside from being a trained assassin on a secret covert government mission where you'll suddenly be blamed by a shadowy cabal.
Well, there is that. And I have been reading a series of novels about a European classic art restorer who's actually like a Mossad assassin.
Of course.
Also, so in his
happens all the time.
But he uses a Beretta 22 with a silencer a lot.
Yeah.
Interesting effect. But no, it's just, you know what? It's polite.
Yes.
It's not only polite, it's fun, makes it easier to shoot well. You're removing, well, I'm reluctant to say this because sometimes the boom and the bang and the flash is pleasantness, but I was about to say you're removing a lot of the unpleasantness from shooting sometimes,
right.
Especially for new folks.
Yeah.
Always use a suppressor taking somebody to shoot for the first time.
And they
feel
feel so cool when they're doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's fun, it's cool, and it's, it takes away that most of the big bang in front of your face, so they can focus on listening and doing the right things and improving the skills.
Exactly. I've told the story many times where a professional hunter told a friend of mine, they were talking about snuffers, as they often refer to them over there. And he said, I don't understand why you don't use them in America. It's just polite, as you said.
Wait a minute, back up on that. What did you say they call it?
Snuffer.
Snuffer? Like snuffer?
Yeah.
Really?
You hadn't heard that?
Okay, I'm a big believer in learning something new every day, and that was my new learning for today. I've never heard it called. I've heard, I haven't bought any suppressors in Europe, but I've heard muffler is common.
Yeah.
And it's definitely common in the airgun world.
Yes.
But I hadn't heard snuffer.
Really?
Snuffer.
Oh,
That's my new term for it here.
Yeah, a lot of the PHs will use that term. And over in Africa especially, they'll use them so that they don't scare the game off. If you take a shot at a big herd of whatever, and there may be 2 or 3 hunters with you or another hunter coming in tomorrow, they'd really prefer that they not scare the game over the horizon. So they'll put on a snuffer and get you to take your shot.
Huh.
Go ahead.
You can't let this go yet. This is a big thing. Do you think that's like an African thing with the professional hunters?
Yeah.
Or do you think that's common in like Central Europe as well, like Western Europe, for example?
I've only heard it in relation to Africa, and I use that accent because a friend of mine who's a South Africaner, if I'm saying that correctly, he was, snuffer. Oh, okay. Snuffer. Yeah. So.
All right. So
there you go.
All right. So I got homework because my daughter-in-law's sister is getting married to an Australian guy, and they have lots of property out there, his family. Yeah. And they have a bunch of guns. So I'm going to have to ask him about what they call them there, and I will report back at a future date.
Excellent.
And I'm going to see him weekend after next. So I will make it a point to explore the down under terminology for this.
Well, whatever you call it, they are a lot of fun. They are of a great practical value. What they're not is not an assassin tool. And I wish they would invent the silencer that just goes like the movies. There are some that, you really hear more of the action. If it's a semi-auto, you'll hear the action run. And if you're downrange and it's supersonic, you'll hear that crack that the bullet makes is actually a lot louder than you would think when you remove the muzzle blast. But people are not using them to commit crimes. It has happened, but they are not solely the province of the trained, insert your own agency here, assassin.
Okay, let's put that to bed right now with a trivia fact. This is a real numbers fact. What's louder, a suppressed gun, a pistol even, or a jackhammer?
Oh, jackhammer, definitely.
Nope.
Really?
Yeah, jackhammer is it depends on the model, of course, if you're into different varieties, but it's about 115 decibels. Yeah. And a silenced center fire, something or other gunshot, around 130. Which is actually a very big difference because it's a logarithmic scale for those of you mathematicians out there. So 15 decibels is a whole lot of sound.
Wow. And, well, I've shot a lot of rifles with suppressors, and depending on what it is, you probably still need hearing protection, especially if it's major caliber. I spent a week doing 338 Lapua, and it was really nice, and it really helped mitigate the big flash and the recoil, but it was still loud enough. You wanted to have some kind of hearing protection in, and definitely if you're under a metal deck.
The fact that a suppressed gunshot is way louder than a jackhammer tells you how loud an unsuppressed gunshot is. And this is actually a good point you bring up on hearing protection. When I'm at the range shooting suppressors, I always wear hearing protection because it's cumulative. Sound damage is one shot, not so big a deal if it's, at a safe volume, like 130 or less. But a bunch of shots, it adds up and still will cause hearing damage. So be careful, even with suppressors. They're noisy.
Yep, they sure
They're
are.
no crime. Unless you think you could get away with a silent, discreet crime with a jackhammer.
Tom, you always had such an interesting spin on things. But
you know what? It puts it in perspective. Yeah. Actually, for an article a while back, I looked up all the various sound levels. So the Megadeth concert you went to, sitting in the front row, that was about 105 decibels. Yeah. Maybe up to 115, depending on the concert. But even still, silenced gunshot is louder.
I've been to Iron Maiden.
Yeah. Yeah. 105, 110 decibels you're looking at there.
We're pushing 110 for sure.
Those guys, they all have to be deaf by now.
Oh, absolutely. but it's a good kind of deaf. But anyway, there's a lot of reasons to own suppressors. They're great fun and they're useful. But really, the big question is people that don't own them. Oh, well, there's government regulation and all kinds of red tape and a tax stamp, a very onerous tax stamp, and it puts you on all kinds of lists. And some, like anything, some of that is true. A lot of it's not. And actually, Tom and I both walked through the process of buying a suppressor at this year's SHOT Show, and we did a brief video. But we're going to talk about that now. So. You actually had done this earlier, Tom, and talk about how you kind of discovered how to do this and your reaction once you had been through the process.
The new process, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
Oh, shock, because I had I bought a pile of suppressors years ago, and it was a giant pain in the neck.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to freely share them with my kids and my wife, and so we did a trust approach. So you can go to a lawyer and get that done. You don't have to anymore. A lot of that can be done relatively easily online. But you're creating a legal entity. And then you get everybody's fingerprints, and then you go get passport photos, and then you fill out all this paperwork, and you take some to your sheriff, and you send it to the government, and they take about a year. At the time, I waited a year.
Yeah.
For a number of suppressors before I got the Mother May I permission slip back. For yes, now you can take possession of this from the dealer.
Yeah.
And I've had situations where during that year the dealer's gone out of business. Just it starts the whole thing again. Yeah, it's just a mess. But
at one point, the wait was up to like 2 years at one point.
Oh yeah,
crazy.
It's absolutely crazy for something that doesn't operate like on TV, right?
Yeah.
No, anyway, but you and I were at SHOT Show, and the new way blew my mind. Folks over at Silencer Central have come up with a way, and apparently, I'm going to divert for a second. You might correct me if I remember this incorrectly, but I believe the founder of the company used to be in the medical, like drugs and
pharmaceutical
devices or something, pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
And he worked with the folks in the FDA and to how do we make it easy for people to get prescription drugs delivered to their home, people that can't go run into the doctor and pharmacy all the time, or controlled, type thing. I don't know all the details, but he figured out that process, and he actually got a lot of cooperation from the government, shockingly. And they figured, hey, we can make this easy and legal and check all the boxes. And they figured out how to do that. And he said, hey, there's an opportunity here for silencers. So cutting to the chase, you can buy legally a silencer now, and it will be delivered to your home in a package at the front door.
Yep.
And which is shocking because every time I bring silencers to the range, people stop and they say, "You can have that? What are you, a Class 3 dealer? What are you a manufacturer?" I was like,
"Are you a trained Mossad agent
it's actually
does
very easy
art on the side?"
Yeah, I'm that art.
Yeah,
I got to figure out what that's called because it's a really great series of books, but for the evil uses of suppressors.
Yeah, I walked through that, and Brandon Maddox, I believe, is his name, the CEO, and we've interviewed him here on the podcast. And he was the guy that figured out if I can make this relatively painless for normal Earth humans to do, there's a huge business opportunity. And lo and behold, for I think it's 40-something states where suppressors are legal, they've got folks in every one of those states, multiple folks, and they've actually come up with a kiosk approach where you can do your fingerprints, you can do your picture, you fill out all the necessary paperwork. And I know they also will go to various gun shows. I know they were at the NRA, they were at SHOT Show, and it's not as easy as, say, going and buying a box of ammo, but it's not quite that thing like you experienced, Tom, where you had to do everything, including maybe give a saliva sample. So...
Well, and I didn't have to fill out the paperwork either.
Yeah.
I mean, we did this live at SHOT Show.
Yeah.
And it worked the way that it would work to any of your listeners here. If they go to a gun show and see this booth or kiosk, there's a person there who navigates you through the process. They've got a little electronic fingerprint scanner, so no ink, none of that stuff. And they say, roll this finger, roll that finger, do all four, blah, blah, blah. turn towards his camera, snap, and then walk you through a questionnaire. You don't even have to write stuff. They do it.
Exactly.
You answer the questions, and then your record with Silencer Central is complete. It's all in there, everything that's needed for them to send the paperwork, or transmit, I should say, your application to the government. A quick turnaround, and then at that point, through the machinations they've done, they can have the dealer ship the silencer directly to your home.
Yep.
And the government's happy, everybody's happy.
And this is, so basically that's the end of that. You go and you do it and you're done, and bada bing. It literally is that simple.
Yep.
And in my case, I didn't buy a silencer right then and there, but I'm on file. So there's a certain time period where when I choose to buy my silencer, I'm there and it's done. So it really works as advertised. And if you're in a state that allows that, I would find out where the nearest kiosk is and go do that. Even if you don't necessarily buy a silencer right then and there, you're at least got it ready to go.
They'll put you in the system, and then from then on, no personal appearance required. You order it online on the website, everything's done.
It's done. So while we're talking about Silencer Central, Tom, did you see any of the recent brouhaha on the interwebs about Silencer Central?
About Silencer Central?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Okay. Well, if you're if you really follow the forums, which of course you and I are hanging out there all day long, right? No, I've got friends over at Silencer Central, and they caught some negative attention. I believe it was 2 weeks ago, and the claim was made that they were nefariously trying to keep federal regulations in place so that they could continue to sell silencers at an inflated price. So a couple of people, influencery folks, talked about that, and they found the quote-unquote smoking gun in a previous press release or a video they had done. And I can explain what it was. And this will probably destroy a few cherished notions that I heard it on the internet. It's got to be true. But here's the actual thing from people I know at Silencer Central. The company does have lobbyists, as any good industry leader should, and they lobby continually for silencers to be taken off the National Firearms Act. So basically, you can just buy one, either mail order or in person. But they're lobbying for that, and it's been a long fight. They've put their money where their mouth is. But a few years ago, they came up with the idea that if we're going to keep the current laws as they are, there's a $200 tax stamp. And that's a do not pass go. You got to give Uncle Sam $200 to have a suppressor. Nothing we can do about that until they change the law. What Brandon and company decided was, well, Tom, do you know where that $200 goes?
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam, but does it go to Pittman Robertson monies, the excise tax on firearms and ammunition, which always goes towards conservation and is paid?
I don't think it does.
No, it goes to the United States General Fund.
Right.
So
which is very well managed.
Very well managed.
So if you're putting money in there, it's going to be spent wisely.
Exactly. So you can be proud if you bought a silencer, 2 years ago, a tiny percentage of your money went to that drag story hour at the local preschool. Keep reaching for the stars. So anyway, that's what Silencer Central was trying to do. They were saying, we want to change these laws, but if we can't change them, we at least want the money that we're all paying into this fund not to go to the general fund to be pissed away. They want it to go to some kind of conservation. So that's what it was about. A few influencers got some clicks initially because they uncovered that smoking gun that the leading silencer manufacturer is doing terrible things. And again, that's not it at all. And like I said, I've interviewed Brandon, good guy, shooter guy. Unless he fooled me, seems like a real squared away person and a real smart person. And I believe what my friends at the company have told me, that no, they were just trying to do the right thing, and somebody got half the story and decided that they were up to no good. So
all these things, like people need to put on their common sense business hat. Would Silencer Central be better off having to jump through all these hoops that they can't really charge for,
right,
to sell, and let's face it, a limited quantity of suppressors?
Yeah.
I mean, as long as there's any paperwork and registration and $200 fee, no matter how the cost is buried, whether they say we're covering it or you pay it directly, it puts a cap on the market.
Exactly.
They're set up, and they've got a big operation set up to sell silencers all over the country, and the Banish group makes suppressors. Wouldn't it benefit them to have no restrictions so they could increase their sales by tenfold overnight?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, literally without blinking, even at a lower price point. I mean, come on, folks.
Yeah. Use your noggin there, Cletus.
We can sell 10 at an inflated price, or 10,000, and compete in the marketplace.
Exactly. So that was Much Ado Over Nothing, and but the other thing that kind of underpins all this, you may have seen that the House, as part of President Trump's beautiful bill, tacked on NFA regulations to bring silencers off the National Firearms Act. In other words, they would just be a firearms accessory like a holster or a set of scope mounts.
I've been kind of loosely following that. Did they do that, or are they just removing the fee, or was it the other way around?
From my understanding, was they tacked it on the bill as removal from NFA.
Okay.
So the caveat being is, I talked to somebody this afternoon with knowledge of all this, and they said it's probably not going to pass the Senate. And so to get President Trump's bill through the House, they all said, sure, whatever. And that's, it's when it's something you don't like, it's aggravating. But this happens all the time. If I think that every child should take taxidermy lessons, and I get support from the Taxidermy Association, I'll tack it on a national defense bill, and they'll pass it. Well, that's what they did in this case. And I mean, it's semi-surprising that the House approved it as is, but I guess there's a number of things that are part of that. And the common belief is that the Senate will strip that out. So
yeah,
it's probably dead on arrival. I hope not. And so does everybody that, enjoys suppressors, but it may be a tough road to hoe. So we can cross our fingers that maybe by later this year, suppressors can be bought, across the counter at a gun store,
like
or even
in
mail.
Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's a real point. I know you know this, but for those listening, they're over-the-counter purchases in Europe.
But Tom, they've got a sniper and assassin problem over there.
Down.
They've got a sniper and assassin problem over there, and that's obviously exacerbating that. Not. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It would be really cool, like you said, that if folks could just go buy a silencer, I'd have gobs and bunches, and I think most people would too. So let's cross our fingers. They've been promising it, and it's interesting. It's one of those things, with like gun control advocates, I at least understand where they're coming from. They're misguided, they're misinformed, standing, but at least I understand it. The anti-suppressor force, which has been strong since the 30s, I don't understand what their major beef is. And it seems like when you ask people that, criminals use suppressors. Point to one famous instance other than Hollywood.
There's one.
I'm sure there is.
New York.
Okay.
What's his name? Luigi or whatever, apparently.
That's true. Good point. I'm surprised he hadn't been trotted out more.
And it made how much difference? People hearing, seeing, catching him?
Zero. Yeah.
Because, remember, way louder than a jackhammer. So
yeah,
you're not getting away with that in New York City or anywhere else.
Well, and there's still kind of the idea that it's still illegal to kill people for the most part. So
only if you use a suppressor.
I guess.
I think.
I guess.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So So anyway, the long and the short here is maybe they're going to be totally legal. Maybe they're going to still be restricted. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But regardless of that, and regardless of the $200 tax stamp, which until it goes away, there's nothing you can do about it. But just the idea that anybody in the vast majority of our states can own a silencer. They're fun. They're useful. So it's one of those things that if you've got all the guns that you've always wanted, and you're kind of at that point of what do I want next, start thinking about a silencer, because I think it's going to be one of the up and coming factors in the next few years, especially if they get that law repealed.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath and wait to buy one, because who knows if and when that's going to happen.
Yeah. And if it does,
that'll give you a lifetime and generational use.
Yeah.
Just bite the bullet.
Yep. Bite the bullet. And think about this. If they finally do legalize it, can you imagine what the wait times are going to be? Oh my. Because they are very intricate pieces of kit. And you don't just pop a whole bunch of them out overnight. Yeah. And the market is really so small right now, I'm sure there's not a lot of excess manufacturing capacity. So if you're thinking about a silencer, we strongly suggest our friends over at Silencer Central utilize their services, and it's about as painless as it can be. So, although
they're 3D printing more and more suppressors now. That nifty little Banish 9K, I think it's called, we saw at SHOT Show. That's 3D printed titanium.
Yeah.
Now that may be even slower to produce. I don't know, but pretty cool.
I picture the day. Wouldn't it be cool to get your Ruger American and 6.5 Creed, and it comes with a integral or matched suppressor? Yeah. Wouldn't that be the coolest?
Like air guns.
Yeah.
Most higher end air guns come with an integral suppressor.
Or a snuffer.
They're loud too.
I was going to say
snuffer. Yeah.
I've got, I don't even remember which brand, but I've got a nice high-end gun here, and it had I actually asked for the sample because I had a problem that I needed a quieter air gun to resolve. We'll leave it at that. Oh my God, that thing's loud as a 22.
Yeah.
So that kind of surprised me.
Yeah, you wouldn't think, but it's not about flame and explosion. It's about air pressure. So
yeah, exactly.
They have plenty of air pressure being released all at once, just like a gun, just like a centerfire firearm. So
yep. So we both highly recommend silencers, whether you're shooting 338 Lapua or a 22, a Colt Woodsman or a Ruger Mark V with a can on the front of it. Mm-hmm. That's big fun. And like Tom said, they're great for training new shooters. So there's really no reason not to have one. Oh, one other point I was going to make, Tom, is, well, I don't want to be on some kind of list.
Yeah.
Kids, you're already on a lot
You're
of
on all the lists already.
Yeah. Just by watching this podcast, you're on a list. But no,
if you ever bought a gun from a dealer who's closed or gone out of business, you're on a list, because all those records, guess where they go?
If you have
ATF.
If you have a bank account of any kind,
same list, right?
Credit cards, driver's license, bought a vehicle, you're on lists. And I don't like the idea, but one thing, it blows people's minds. I think I've spoken of this before. When I was in law enforcement, there's a service, and it's a private service. There's also a government-backed one, but the private one's actually better. If I say Tom McHale in South Carolina, I'll get a 50 or 60 page report of everything you've ever done, everybody you've ever known, everybody they've ever known, where you've lived, what you've driven. In today's world, you're leaving data every place you go. And yes, the government and private entities collect that. So I wouldn't worry too awfully much about being on the list.
They don't look at social media, do they?
What? Well,
you ever said on social media, had a fun day at the range? Guess what?
Yeah. And you know what? Actually, that's a good point that we haven't talked about on the podcast, but this is very relevant, and we might as well do it right now. We've had a little problem on the computer side here recently. Actually, Tom and I were just in a meeting today and had some discussions over this. If you have been to gunsmagazine.com recently and you got that big red box, danger, warning, danger, danger. Yeah, we got hacked. We got hacked multiple times. And what was the terminology our programmer used? It was very exquisite code.
Elegant and exquisite. Maybe it's exquisite. Yeah.
I think, yeah, whatever it was, he said it was pretty.
He was impressed.
He was impressed. So our meeting is, and I don't want to, if you're the hacker, send me your address. I'd like to give you a congratulatory note. But we think
a drone with a package.
Maybe I'll have it delivered by drone. No, we have been hacked by either a person or an organization. It's been an ongoing thing. It should be fixed. Should be. But as you can imagine, our website's a complicated place, and we got an entire team working on it. So I appreciate when folks immediately reach out. Usually they're quicker than even our IT folks to say, there's a problem here. So I apologize. It wasn't anything. It's not like we had major security lapses. This was just some new stuff that they figured out a way to do. And as you probably already know, there are state-sponsored actors all across the globe. And there is a robust organized crime network in a lot of countries that they do this for economic reasons. So I just wanted to bring that up, that if you've been to gunsmagazine.com and you got the big red danger box, we think we got it fixed. But as always, just be careful, be cautious. And if it happens again, let me know and we'll do what we can do. But it feels like things are maybe locked down a little bit tighter. So anyway, any other thoughts, Tom? You're far more advanced on that kind of stuff than I am. In fact, maybe it was your fault because you should have gone in there and fixed it.
Sorry, I broke the website.
Yeah. So, well, any other final thoughts, departing thoughts from Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner? I didn't say that off the top. I just assumed everybody knew you, and there may be a few. There typically are a few new folks every week watching or listening to the podcast. So, Tom McHale, editor of American Handgunner magazine. Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, get a 22 suppressor. For those watching the video version, the one I held up earlier. And Brent, I love your ideas on the Smith & Wessons and Rugers. This one is a Smith & Wesson M&P 22 compact, which means it's like roughly 3/4 size of a full-size M&P, which with a small, tiny 22 suppressor makes the whole package very trim and balanced. This is my new shooter gear right here.
Very cool.
Perfect, light, easy to control, quiet, fun, no recoil.
Unlike the microphone stand you just hit, but yeah, that.
You hear that? Yeah.
But that's louder than the silent. Or yes. No.
No, wait a minute. Which way does that go? I don't know.
Other way around. Yeah.
Just remember jackhammer. Next time somebody gives you grief about how dangerous they are, jackhammer.
And if you want to be the master of suave at your local range, bring out your snuffer, put it on your 22, and go to work. So. Well, Tom McHale, actually talk about American Handgunner a little bit. I think folks know what it is, but in case you're that one or two new folks or the hacker who's probably watching us in Gurgistan.
Hoping to slide under the radar with that.
Yeah.
They haven't found that one yet.
Yeah. But talk about American Handgunner real quick.
Yeah, visit us at AmericanHandgunner.com. Lots of new articles weekly going up. Just like at Guns Magazine, you can subscribe to all our FMG publications newsletters. And check out American Handgunner Insider, video and podcast show. We do those about once a week.
Yep.
And talk about handgun topics. News,
there you go.
Products, sometimes people, the usual. Short, sweet, and to the point.
There you go. Well, Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner, I appreciate you joining me for talking about suppressors, because they're that's what all the cool kids have, and I guess we're cool kids, right?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Well, cost you $200.
There you go. Cheap at twice the price. So, Tom McHale, thanks for joining us here on another episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. Well, it was great talking to Tom McHale from American Handgunner Magazine, and hopefully we piqued your interest in silencers and given you a roadmap if you want to investigate owning a silencer of your own. Before we go, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Of course, like and subscribe. That's how you can really support what we're doing. And if you would like to really support what we're doing, you can go to fmgpubs.com where you can get magazine subscriptions and our special interest books, such as John Connor's Odd Angry Shot, Roy Huntington's Insider, and a whole bunch more. Once again, that's fmgpubs.com. And of course, there's our great sponsor, Armscor and Rock Island Armory.
The new STK from Rock Island Armory. Experience the power and precision of the Rock today. For more info, visit armscor.com.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. On behalf of everybody that works so hard here at FMG Publications, including Tom McHale, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, reminding you yet again, now get out there and get shooting.